and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Easter week continues. Happy Easter week to you. A very happy Easter week. And hope it's progressing joyfully for you and yours. It certainly feels joyful around here at Catholic Answers. And the joy continues on and on. I shouldn't just say this hour. Today, we have 2 hours of pro-life open forum. We're going to discuss issues of human life from its earliest conception to its natural death, and any of the crises that happen in between. Pro-life open forum means if you have any question about the ethics of caring for and preserving and avoiding assaulting and the dignity of human life, give us a call, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. First hour, we got a big celebrity as our guest. Dr. George Delgado is our guest, and he's the medical director of Culture of Life Family Healthcare. He's board certified in family medicine and in hospice and palliative medicine. He's also completed the certificate program in healthcare ethics offered by the National Catholic Bioethics Center. And I say he's a big celebrity because they have an article about him and his work today in the Washington Post. Dr. George Delgado, thank you for being with us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with the article in the Washington Post, in part because I feel like the Washington Post gave you a fair hearing about the work that you're doing, and I'll ask you to describe that. But essentially, you have developed a method by which if a woman attempts or goes to the clinic and attempts a chemical abortion, which has 2 drugs involved in it, and after she takes the first drug, she regrets her choice and does not want to take the life of the child, which I was impressed with how often that happens. That's a common thing. You've developed a technique whereby you can give a very high chance that the baby can be saved in that situation. Have I described it appropriately?
I think you have, yes. And so oftentimes people do change their minds after making very big decisions, and abortion is not exempt from that. And so we have women who call all the time to our hotline at abortionpillreversal.com expressing an interest in learning more about the reversal procedure. And as you said, the Washington Post just did an article because on April 1st, our scientific article was published in a peer-reviewed medical journal called Issues in Law and Medicine. And in that article, we describe more than 250 successful reversals, how women who changed their mind after taking mifepristone were given progesterone in order to attempt to reverse that medical abortion procedure. And if you look at the 2 subgroups that have the best, which are our best protocols, what we call the high-dose oral protocol, there was a success rate of 68% survival and went on to deliver babies. And in the injection protocol, there was a 64% rate of success. When you look at the entire group, including those who got very low doses of progesterone, then the overall average is 48%. But of course, now we're going to always encourage women to use our very best protocols now that we know what they are. Now, this compares to a historical control, which is quoted in that Washington Post article, that if a woman takes mifepristone and does nothing else at all and just waits to see what happens, the unborn baby will survive 25% of the time. So we've taken that 25% survival and increased it up to 68% with our very best protocol. So we're very, very excited to give women a second chance at choice.
You know, I cannot imagine being in a position to say you've undertaken this research and you've kind of developed this procedure that at the very least you can look and say 257 human lives saved. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's very humbling, and it really gives me a very special sense of purpose that God has allowed me to participate in His work, and to save physical lives, but at the same time, we are saving and changing spiritual lives, because the women in these situations who have that second chance at choice, that they're very, very grateful for it, and we think that we're part of a conversion process in their lives where they really are going to do things better and really seek to follow their God-given instincts of nurturing their young and doing something good for their in their lives, for their children and for their families and for the world. So it's great to be a part of all that.
Dr. George Delgado is our guest. It's a pro-life open forum this hour. Give us a call, 888-318-7884, if you have questions related to life in all of its different stages and the ethics of how we care for, and in some cases, in far too many cases, about how we attack life. If you have a question about any of that, your question is welcome, 888-318-7884. So I got the impression reading this article, Dr. Delgado, in the Washington Post today, that maybe some of the it strikes me that maybe some of the big institutions like the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists are sort of captured a little bit by maybe I say a little bit, but it's probably not a little bit. They seem captured by an ideological view that abortion is good and stop trying to say that it's not.
I tend to agree, and it's based on my experience of the reaction to the work that we've done. There's been a significant amount of prejudice and an unwillingness to listen to us and to really take a look at the science from the very get-go, unfortunately. And we've seen that from the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and other leaders in the OBGYN field, that they seem to think that it's almost impossible that a woman would change her mind, number one, which of course to me and to most reasonable people is preposterous. And then number two, they make assumptions that what we're doing is not safe or not effective, when actually the growing scientific evidence shows quite otherwise. We now have this large case series that shows it's successful, and our case series and other medical literature shows that it's safe. Even ACOG themselves say that mifepristone is not associated with any birth defects, and progesterone has been used in pregnancy for over 50 years and is considered very, very safe. And in fact, the in vitro fertilization doctors use progesterone routinely during the first trimester of all the pregnancies that they have with their patients. So we really think that this is safe and effective. There's no alternative treatment. So if a woman changes her mind, why not give her that option?
Do you have any information now that other doctors are, around the country are picking up this and saying, okay, or here's a tool we have. If a woman comes and says, I took this, the first of these abortion drugs, I don't want to do this. What can you do for me? Now we've got this tool.
Well, we are seeing that. We are seeing an increasing number of doctors wanting to join our network. That's number one. And number two, we're seeing anecdotes. For example, there was a few months ago, there was an article in the New York Times magazine about our work, and they interviewed a pro-choice reproductive endocrinologist who's an OBGYN infertility doctor at Yale, who said he didn't think that this was a good thing to do. But then he said, on the other hand, if my daughter were pregnant and accidentally took mifepristone, I would certainly give her progesterone. So there he was giving tacit approval, at least to our logic. And then now in this Washington Post article, Dr. Daniel Grossman from the University of California, San Francisco, who actually authored an article in the journal Contraception about 2 years ago that was really an attack piece on our work. He says in there that, and I'm quoting him, it makes some biologic sense, unquote, that flooding the body with progesterone could counter the effect of the first abortion pill. So there he's really saying that it does make sense. And I think that that's very telling when someone who has really opposed you now sort of concedes that point right there.
It's frankly, it comes off as kind of paternalistic, this idea that, as the doctor, I don't want to bother. It's almost like, we don't want to bother the little ladies with this added information. let's just keep this quiet.
It is, and it's also interesting that they say they're all for choice, except when the choice is not to have an abortion. So it really makes you wonder, are they really pro-choice or are they just pro-abortion?
It does indeed make you wonder that. 888-31-TRUTH is our number, 888-318-7884. If you'd like to know more about this technique, this process that Dr. Delgado has been a leader in developing, using progesterone to counter the effects of one of the abortion pills that are prescribed, you can certainly call about that. But if you have any questions at all about pro-life issues involving human life and human dignity, 888-318-7884 is the number. I wonder, however, if you went into the average abortion providing facility and you said, hey, you guys gave me this drug yesterday, I don't want to do it, can I have the progesterone? I would gather the answer would be no.
That's been the answer we've heard from women who call our hotline, because often they will call the abortion center first because that's the healthcare provider they know. And when they call there, they often are told that either, number one, it's impossible to reverse it, or number two, your baby's sure to have birth defects. So these people at the abortion centers either are not keeping up with the medical literature or they're lying to these clients.
That's just horrifying, isn't it? Well, we have to take a quick break. Lots of folks on the line for you, Dr. Delgado. Again, congratulations on the publishing of this research that seems to show such a positive outcome for the use of progesterone in this way, and on the pretty fair hearing you got in media today, which we don't always expect on the pro-life side, to be frank. 888-31-TRUTH is the number. Dr. Delgado is here to take your calls. We'll do that right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
It's all about the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
Many atheists assert the only real form of knowledge is scientific knowledge, thus excluding any sort of religious knowledge, whether philosophical or theological. Such a belief is called scientism, and it's unreasonable for two reasons. First, it's self-refuting. Its truth cannot be verified by the scientific method. It's a metaphysical proposition, and as such, is not scientific knowledge. But if science can't verify the truth of scientism, well then, scientism itself cannot be a legitimate form of knowledge, in which case, it's self-refuting. Moreover, scientism undermines science as a rational form of inquiry, because it denies presupposed philosophical assumptions that are necessary to even do science, such as there's an external world outside the minds of scientists. So, to reject God's existence on the grounds that it's not scientific knowledge is simply unreasonable. I'm Carlo Broussard with a ready reason for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
Talking about abortion can be scary, but so is anything with which you're unfamiliar. People need to learn how to talk about abortion in ways that inspire confidence in the truth of the pro-life position. We must talk about abortion because we are afraid. Persuasive Pro-Life: How to Talk About Our Culture's Toughest Issue is the new book by apologist Trent Horn that teaches you to face those fears, to engage in sustained and meaningful dialogue with the goal of persuading others. Field-tested on college campuses, Persuasive Pro-Life will help you to change people's hearts and minds and begin to build up a pro-life culture in today's world, one person, one conversation at a time. Order your copy of Persuasive Pro-Life: How to Talk About Our Culture's Toughest Issue today by calling 1-888-291-8000, going to Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore in your area. Also available as an ebook.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their faith and values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. In this hour, a pro-life open forum all hour. If you have questions about life, about medical ethics, give us a call, 888-318-7884. Dr. George Delgado is our guest, and if you're looking for that article we were talking about, it is at the Washington Post's website. You can get that article today. But what I didn't mention, Dr. Delgado, was the website for this abortion reversal.
Yes, abortionpillreversal.com.
That's That's pretty good. That's pretty easy. Abortionpillreversal.com. You can go there for more information on this. Lots of calls. Let's go to Jean in Madison, Wisconsin, listening to EWTN on Sirius Satellite Radio. Jean, you are on with Dr. George Delgado.
Hello, doctor. Thank you. I just pulled up the Planned Parenthood to pray for an hour, and 9 people just came out of the worker door, so they're all going home. There's about 3 left. But Jesus said that the love of money is the root of all evil. How is the love of money the root of all evil at Planned Parenthood?
Well, that's a great question, and I think the more recent revelations from people like Abby Johnson and others like Carol Everett, who didn't work for Planned Parenthood but had an abortion business, shows that the Planned Parenthood and the other big abortion clinics, and probably all abortion clinics, really are based on a very clever financial model, and it's based on their main business, their cash cow is abortion, and then there's been an appendage to that, an addition, which is selling the fetal body parts for profit. And so everything is funnels into that. And it all starts, first of all, with their so-called teen education and even preteen education when they get into, their Planned Parenthoods and the Girl Scouts. They're allied with some big medical groups. They have websites, and what they do is they desensitize children to sexual activity and sexual thoughts, shattering the sexual latency. They encourage teens to have all sorts of sexual activity and tell them that it's okay to do whatever sexual activity that you feel is you're ready to do. Then they give them condoms, which fail. They also give them low-dose birth control pills, which they are calculated to fail a certain percentage of the time. And so what happens when they fail and the girl becomes pregnant? Well, of course, there has to be a second option. And this U.S. Supreme Court agreed with that philosophy in the Casey case, where it said that a society that governs its actions based on the availability of contraception must have abortion as a second backup plan in case that contraception fails. And so Planned Parenthood and these other abortion providers know that when the contraception fails, which it does, especially in the hands of young people who aren't always as fastidious as they should be about taking things when they should, then they will be back for abortions. And then once you have a first abortion, they know they'll be back for a second and a third. This is a very clever marketing scheme. It's been researched extensively. They know exactly what they're doing, and that funnels it all into that cash cow of abortion. And then they've gone from there to, well, why should we just throw away these body parts when we can sell them? And so now, as David Daleiden has demonstrated, they are selling or have been selling body parts. So that's how the love of money is at the root of the evil of Planned Parenthood and its allies.
Thank you, Doctor. Excellent. Thank you for all your great work with God.
You're welcome, and thanks for praying in front of that center, because it's primarily a spiritual battle, and your prayers are quite valuable in changing the hearts and minds of people who go in and out of that center.
Thank you, Gene. Thanks so much for the call. 888-31-TRUTH, the number. We continue on here. We'll go to Darlene in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Darlene, you are on with Dr. George Delgado. Your question.
Hi, Dr. Delgado. I am a volunteer at a crisis pregnancy center, and we occasionally get women who have either visited Planned Parenthood and have already taken their Plan B or sometimes the Plan A pill and still feel that they are pregnant. And so my question to you is, in those cases, if they still feel that they are pregnant, how can this protocol for progesterone help them, and how do we get them in touch with someone that can put them on your protocol for this progesterone treatment to save their pregnancy?
Well, first let's clear up a common misconception, and that's the confusion and that Plan B is the same as the abortion pill. So Plan B is really marketed as a contraceptive, although it almost certainly has abortifacient properties. But the Plan B and the related kind of drugs are taken before a woman even knows she's pregnant. It's taken within hours to days after intercourse. So she really doesn't know if she's pregnant. while the medical abortion, or mifepristone, previously known as RU46, it's taken by a woman who knows she's pregnant and intends to cause an abortion. So it's taken up to 10 weeks of pregnancy. So that's the difference there. So if a woman has taken that mifepristone, the first drug in the two-drug cocktail for causing a medical abortion, and she changes her mind, and you want to help her, then you can go to abortionpillreversal.com, and you can read up on the abortion pill reversal process. And then if the woman is interested, then she can call our hotline that's there on the website. Now, if you want to sort of be ready for it as a pregnancy center, which I encourage you to do, because what I tell pregnancy centers that are not yet in our network is that sooner or later a woman is going to show up to you and say she's taken mifepristone and changed her mind and wants your help. So you might as well be ready to help her and not think that it's not going to happen. So be prepared, be ready. Pregnancy centers and pregnancy clinics can join our network as hubs, and we can explain all that to you by going to our website or by writing to us at apreversal@gmail.com. We can get you all that information so that you can be ready and willing and capable of helping women who've taken mifepristone and then changed their minds.
Okay, Darlene?
That sounds awesome. We'll definitely be doing that. Thank you so much.
Super.
Well, God bless you, sister, and all the work you do. Thank you so much for doing it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, we got time. Let's go to Mary in Erie, Pennsylvania, listening to EWTN on Sirius XM satellite radio. Mary in Erie, you are on with Dr. George Delgado.
Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Delgado, for all the work that you're doing in saving lives and educating people. My question is about the other end of a woman's reproductive capacity and what seems to be kind of an increase in hysterectomies. So women and some friends of mine who are younger and younger are getting hysterectomies almost as a treatment for recurrent uterine fibroids, prolapse issues. And as a Catholic woman, I think it just kind of poses some ethical issues, and I just wanted to know what your opinion was on that.
Yeah, that can be a difficult situation. There really are three angles to look at here. There's first is the woman who is still in her fertile years, and if she has a hysterectomy, then of course that will render her sterile. And so there has to be a very good reason in order to accept that sterility as an unintended consequence of a treatment. Now, of course, if someone goes into a hysterectomy really wanting to be sterile, and this is just an excuse for sort of taking care of two things at once, and really the intent is for sterilization, then that would not be ethically acceptable. But let's say it's a woman who has some medical problems related to the uterus. Then the question is there any better treatment that could be rendered to that woman that would take care of the problem, but that would not lead to sterility? And if there is, then it's incumbent upon that woman to undergo the procedure that would not take out the uterus, that would just treat the problem itself. So that would be the thinking there. If it's a woman in her post-fertile years who's, let's say, menopausal, then the bar is not as high. Then having a hysterectomy doesn't have as many as the ethical concerns, although there always is an ethical discussion at least to be had whenever any kind of body part, even if it's just your finger, let's say, is amputated. There has to be a good and just reason to amputate a body part. It has to be truly treating a disease. So you still have to go through that thought process. Is there a better, less invasive, less destructive way to treat this problem? If there is, then you would do that. But if there isn't, which oftentimes there are not, and bleeding problems and other things can be difficult, then it would be okay to have a hysterectomy. So I think that's kind of how you would look at it. Is you'd look at the ethical part first, and the ethical hurdles are sort of higher if the woman is still in her fertile years. And then you look at the medical part. Is there a better, less invasive, simpler treatment instead of having a hysterectomy in order to treat the condition? Does that make sense?
Yeah, good. Thank you. I know a lot of women are encouraged, and doctors are saying this is the best route, and I think people really tend to believe and trust in their medical professionals, and I'm not sure the alternates are always put out there. But
I agree.
Thank you for your thoughts on that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mary, very much for that call. 888-318-7884 is our number. 888-318-7884. Just before we go to a break, I would like to remind our listeners that it's first week of April, and that means it's time to kick off our annual spring sale, and we want to invite you to it. Anytime you order a Catholic Answers product, you can save 15% right now by entering promo code SPRING18 when you check out at shop.catholic.com. Save 15% on everything at shop.catholic.com just by entering the word SPRING18. Dr. George Delgado is our guest this hour. We're talking life in all of its stages and the ethics of how we treat one another. We'll be right back with more on that after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live.
EWTN, communicating the faith.
I feel that God has been really doing a work in me in the last 5-10 years. I'm a convert to Catholicism, and I started to just really feel a passion to know more about the Catholic faith, and I started listening to Catholic radio all day. I'm not doing great things, but I'm doing small things with great love.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Hi, this is Trent Horn, and you've probably heard me explain Catholicism to non-Catholic callers on the radio or engage opponents in formal public debates. I've always hoped these interactions would show people how to graciously defend and share our faith. But they're not enough. That's why I've created a weekly podcast that will help Catholics answer the toughest objections against our faith. Every episode of the Council of Trent will provide listeners with a conversation roadmap that will help them share their faith with anyone. Keep in mind that I hate boring lectures. These podcasts will contain entertaining, informative, and practical explanations of the faith, as well as interviews with the best Catholic writers and speakers in the world today. Visit TrentHornPodcast.com today to find out how you can subscribe to my new podcast. That's TrentHornPodcast.com.
The world is changing. The days of picking up a paperback book or popping a DVD or compact disc in the player have given way to the digital age. The good news is that the shop at Catholic.com has joined the digital revolution. Check out the new digital platform at shop.catholic.com, where all of our DVDs, books, and audio products are now available in digital form for you to purchase and download at your convenience, anywhere you go. For that matter, anywhere in the world. We've got hundreds of offerings, so visit shop.catholic.com today and check out our selection. That's shop.catholic.com.
A very happy Easter to you and yours. Thanks so much for joining us here on Catholic Answers Live. It is the joyful season, and I hope that that joy has reached your home and your family. 888-318-7884 is our number here. If you prefer the spelling version, 888-31-TRUTH, 888-31-TRUTH. It is a pro-life open forum, so if you have any questions about life, about the ethics of caring for life, about our obligations to one another, please give us a call, 888-318-7884. Sometimes we have these pro-life open forums, and all the calls will focus on the early part of life, abortion and reproduction and all those kinds of things. And sometimes we'll do it, and it'll all seem to focus on the late stages of life, euthanasia questions, assisted suicide questions, palliative care type questions. But don't be swayed if you have a question that's not fitting with the theme of the day, whether it's one way or the other. We welcome all questions having to do with life in all of its stages. 888-318-7884. Dr. Delgado has treated it all and has studied it all at the Catholic Bioethics Center, and is happy to take your call. Again, 888-318-7884. We go now to Robert in Lafayette, Louisiana, listening on to EWTN on Sirius Satellite 130. Robert, your question for Dr. Delgado.
Hi, Dr. Delgado. I was very glad to hear you speak this afternoon, and I was curious has it been your experience that OBGYNs in general, with few exceptions, when a woman has a problem with her reproductive organs, their first response is, here, take hormonal contraceptive pills and that'll fix it, and they give very little consideration to all of the terrible side effects. We know there's some studies that suggest that breast cancer in particular tracks along with the increase in use of hormonal contraceptive. There's a lot of other environmental issues too that I won't ask about, but particularly are the OBGYNs trained to, here, take this pill, regardless of all of these other issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's always hard to put everybody in the same bag, but I think these days we can make some generalities, and certainly based on my interactions with different OBGYNs and different times when I've treated patients that have also been treated by OBGYNs. And I think the characterization can be made that the birth control pill is the hammer, and so everything becomes a nail. And that's a tendency really with all of us if you think about it. You get something that becomes a tool, and you become skilled at using it, and you want to use it for as many things as possible. And that happens in medicine, it happens in life, it happens in business. Everyone falls into that trap, I think. Now the trap, however, with the birth control pill is a particularly dangerous trap, though, compared to other times when that happens in our lives. And that's for a few reasons. One, you've already mentioned, which is becoming more and more known now, and that's that a woman who takes a birth control pill, particularly before her first term pregnancy, will increase her risk of breast cancer in the same manner that a woman who has an abortion before her first term pregnancy will increase her risk of breast cancer. And probably abortions any time will increase the risk, but particularly before the first term pregnancy. And that's because we know that the birth control pills can stimulate breast cells to start to develop, but then they don't develop all the way to maturation. And so they're in a very vulnerable situation. When cells are dividing, but they haven't yet reached the protected maturation point, they can have errors in the duplication of the DNA, and those errors then can lead to cancer, because when you have a gene that is copied erroneously, then it can do things it shouldn't do. And one of those things it shouldn't do is to cause uncontrolled growth, which is what we call cancer. So there's that problem right there. There's also the issue of other side effects that are really minimized, and that include, especially in a woman who's a smoker, and especially with women who have migraine headaches, increased risk of stroke, some liver problems, blood clot problems, other things that are not very common, but they also are very rare in young, healthy, fertile females. And so when it happens to one of those, and it really wasn't necessary, of course, then it's a huge tragedy. And for it just to happen to one woman who has a devastating stroke at the age of 25 or 30 or even younger, that can be, it's a life-altering, devastating thing. Then, of course, we move to the more ethical and moral areas, and that's, well, let's say if you have a woman or a girl who has acne, and the doctor prescribes a birth control pill for acne. And of course, birth control pills, certain ones of them, they do help acne. There's no doubt about that. But again, why are you using the hammer for that treatment when we have such wonderful acne medicines these days that, 90% of the time we can get the worst cases of acne well controlled, better than with birth control pills, and we without all the side effects. But again, why do they use the birth control pill? Because in the back of their minds they're saying, well, she may not be sexually active now, but we know she will be, and she'll want to be protected. And so there's that kind of a paternalistic or maternalistic, depending on the gender of the doctor, assumption that I know what's best for this patient, and I better make sure she doesn't get pregnant because I know she's going to have sex. She's not going to be chaste. And then what happens to that girl who's put on birth control pills ostensibly for acne or for bad periods or for irregular periods, or pick whatever you want? then in the back of her mind she knows, well, gosh, I could actually have sex and I won't get pregnant. That's the mindset. And so her defense, her own psychological defenses go down. She's not going to be on guard as much when she has that boyfriend, or she's had too many drinks and she's not making wise decisions. And it actually will lead her to unchaste behavior and to have sex when she wouldn't have ordinarily or normally, because she would still be on guard and she would be knowing that there would be consequences to her actions. And so that is really the spiritual and the moral consequence of doctors using contraceptives as a treatment for so many different things. And they tout this, and they have lots of research on the so-called non-contraceptive benefits of oral contraceptive pills. And it's sort of like they've tried to make a case for why every woman in the United States under the age of 50 should be on a birth control pill. And it's really unfortunate that they try to use that hammer on every single woman, to the detriment of the physical and the spiritual health of those women.
Robert, I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for that call. I'm going to move now to Jamie in Orlando, Florida, listening on Divine Mercy Radio. Jamie, you're on with Dr. George Delgado. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, hello. I was calling because...
Hey, Jamie, I hate to do this to you, but we can't really hear you. Can you get close to the phone? If you're on speaker, take it off speaker.
Oh, okay.
Okay, does that work better?
What? No, yeah, it works better. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. Good. Okay, so a few of us here in Orlando got wind of a meeting that is supposed to be taking place among some pro-choicers called Get Fake Clinics Out of Orlando. And we found out about this going through multiple layers of protection on their part, trying to weed out pro-lifers from attending. We found out about this, and now we're kind of wondering what should be the best tactic for how to handle this. We were wondering, do we just kind of like, we know the location now and the time, so would we just kind of like stand outside with signs to kind of let them know, hey, we're on to you, or do we send somebody in to listen in on the meeting, or what other
Jamie, who's having the meeting?
Suggest?
Who's having this meeting?
It is a group of pro-choicers that they're calling themselves Get Fake Clinics Out of Orlando. They're targeting crisis pregnancy centers, and I think the plan is to try to figure out kind of like how to go undercover and ask gotcha questions to show, these people aren't really for what they call reproductive health.
Oh, yeah. In California, we call those people the legislature and the governor, but it's different there in Florida, apparently. Dr. Delgado.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, the California case is very revealing because the state legislature passed a law requiring all pregnancy help centers to have signs with specified font size in up to, I think, 15 different languages. So you can imagine that. You're going to cover your entire wall with these signs saying that we do not provide abortions, and here's where the nearest abortion center is, and we're not a licensed facility. All these things that try to stigmatize these pregnancy resource centers and frankly, going against the First Amendment free speech rights of these pregnancy help centers. So the state of California was sued, and the case worked its way up now to the U.S. Supreme Court. They heard the arguments about 2 weeks ago, I believe, and there one of the justices asked the Attorney General of the state of California, Javier Becerra, well, do you have a case where a pregnancy resource center misrepresented itself? And he hemmed and hawed, and he said, well, has there been a case? Has there ever been a complaint filed? No, there have not. So in the entire state of California, which is bigger than most countries in the world, they could not dig up a case where there was a, quote, fake clinic. And so I think that's very telling in that the pro-life clinics do not misrepresent themselves in general. I can't speak for all of them, of course, but I think we just have to go ahead and go by our record. And I would try to go to that meeting. If you can get somebody inside the meeting, that would be the best. just to listen to what they're up to. But if not, I would be outside in front with peaceful signs, and I would stress the fact that women have the right to know all options, and that pregnancy centers have a right to have their businesses the way they see fit and to exercise their First Amendment rights. And those First Amendment rights include talking about the sanctity of life and telling people that, no, we will not refer for abortion because we don't think that that is the right thing to do. So I think those things are very important. And then, again, anytime something like this happens, it's a good opportunity to examine how you're running your pregnancy resource centers to make sure that everything you're doing is totally ethically above board, transparent, in basically in keeping with Christian principles, that the truth will always set us free. We always want to be truthful, but at the same time we want to defend ourselves vigorously.
Jamie, how's that sit with you? Jamie?
Good, thank you. Yes. I had one other comment. I was just kind of surprised that they wanted to make sure that they were genuine reproductive centers, but crisis pregnancy centers are the only ones that are actually making sure reproduction comes to fruition, comes to completion. So I thought it was ironic choice of words on their part.
That is ironic. The other thing is to don't fall into their trap of, and what they try to do is they coin the word reproductive services, and then they define that as including abortion. So you want to make sure you don't fall in the trap of letting them define all the terms, and by arguing that abortion is not a reproductive service, it's an anti-reproductive service, like you're implying right there, because too often they control the words and then they control the outcome. So we want to make sure that we do counter them on that. And I think, in the state of Florida, I think, your laws are pretty supportive, and I think just knowing what the laws say and allow so that you don't let them take you down a rabbit hole and concede a point which you really do not need to concede. The only thing you need to concede is that we will not refer or perform abortions, which is the absolute truth, and we want everyone to know that, because we want them to know that this is a place to go that affirms life and that will protect the unborn child and the mother. And I would emphasize again that we are all about protecting the rights of the mother, the dignity of the mother, because at these abortion centers they are not given true informed consent. I mean, our own abortion pill reversal experience shows that they're not told that there's a possibility of reversal. They're given lies all the time. Things are not explained to them. They really don't have the option for choice. They're in a corner, and they feel they have no way out. And so these abortion centers really victimize them, and they manipulate them, and they take advantage of this situation where they feel they really have no options.
Jamie, we got to head to a break. Thank you very, very much for that call. Follow up with us sometime. I'd like to hear how that turns out. Dr. George Delgado is our guest. It's a pro-life open forum. Give us a call, 888-318-7884. Be right back with more after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Call us now with your question on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers is doing it again. We're holding our 5th annual Apologetics Conference this September in beautiful San Diego, California, and we'd like to see you there.
We've had a wonderful time going home all enthused.
Every time we come here, it's just an incredible experience.
Normally you'd have to root through a dozen different books to get half the stuff I've learned here.
These guys are so amazing. I always get so much, learn so much. I've already signed up for next year.
Join us this September 27th to the 30th for a lively and inspiring conference with an all-star lineup of speakers guaranteed to jumpstart your faith. All of your favorite Catholic Answers apologists and special keynote speaker Raymond Leo Cardinal Burke.
I enjoy the atmosphere and the friendliness of the people, and I'm having a great time.
I love it. I'm so glad I came here.
I've just learned so much. I've been a Catholic all my life. It's just been so wonderful.
I love it. I want to come back every year.
Pope Francis said, "The key that opens the door to the faith is prayer." Join St. Paul Street Evangelization by running a prayer station in the public square. You don't need to be a professional apologist or theologian. Just listen to the needs of the people you encounter. Offer encouragement, take prayer requests, and pray with people. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Over the years, we have heard thousands of stories of how the ministry of Catholic Answers and Catholic Answers Live has changed lives all over the world. Do you have such a story? We'd love to hear how Catholic Answers has changed your life. Send your story to us today. Email us at mystory@catholic.com, or you can call 619-387-7200 to make an audio recording of your story.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest is Dr. George Delgado. Dr. Delgado is the Director of Culture of Life Family Healthcare. He's a board-certified family medicine and hospice and palliative care doctor. He also completed the certification program in healthcare ethics offered by the National Catholic Bioethics Center. And man, they are doing good work at that National Catholic Bioethics Center, aren't they?
Yes, it's a great organization.
Yeah, we get to talk with Father Tad every now and then. That guy, man, what a gift he is.
He is. I was blessed to have him as a mentor in my bioethics training, and he's just fantastic.
Our open forum for a pro-life open forum, I should say, means if you've got a question about the care of life in its earliest stages, in its latest stages, or in any stages in between, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. Let's go to Anonymous in Montana. Anonymous, you are on with Dr. George Delgado. Your question, please.
Thank you for taking my call. I have two questions. The first is what guidelines or directives exist to guide Catholic hospitals? I'm aware of the USCCB document, but wondering if there are other documents that can help provide guidance. And my second question is particular to the situation of a woman who is undergoing a C-section and also desires tubal ligation. And I'm wondering if it is acceptable for this procedure to be done within a Catholic hospital in order to minimize her risk if she's going to have that tubal ligation done. Regardless, she would be incurring additional risk to have to undergo an additional surgery, anesthesia, etc. So just looking for some guidance on that topic.
Okay. Well, let's take them in the reverse order. The tubal ligation at the time of a cesarean section, the way you phrased it, your premise, I think, is faulty. And that is, you're assuming, the assumption there is that she has to have the tubal ligation. So you're saying you want to mitigate the risk by only having one surgery. However, that's a false premise. She does not have to have the tubal ligation. That is an elective lifestyle procedure. She's not having the tubal ligation because of any medical problem, any medical situation. There's no disease in the tubes. She's having it for lifestyle, and that is because she doesn't want to have any more children. So that sterilization procedure is what we call intrinsically evil. It can never be justified. So because of that, no Catholic, and in fact no person following God's plan or even the natural law should have a tubal ligation. And certainly no Catholic hospital should ever allow a tubal ligation, whether it's part of a cesarean section or just a standalone surgery, to ever occur in its operating rooms. And that is a basic fundamental Catholic teaching. Does that ever happen in Catholic hospitals? I bet it does, but it shouldn't. And what governs the Catholic hospitals in the United States is a document called the Ethical and Religious Directives, or ERD. And the Ethical and Religious Directives is a set of directives that governs Catholic hospitals and Catholic healthcare organizations, essentially putting out the guidelines of how the the work of the Catholic Health Organization is based on the divine physician, on Jesus Christ himself, and is based on helping the sick and the poor, the marginalized, and giving them the very best medical care in order to uplift their dignity as human persons. And in order to uplift their dignity as human persons, there are some things that we would not do to people, and that includes sterilization, that includes prescribing contraceptives, that includes euthanasia, and other things that would violate the natural law. So it's a pretty comprehensive set of guidelines that all Catholic hospitals in the United States are supposed to follow. It was passed and promulgated and updated by the United States Catholic bishops. Now, there are many Catholic hospitals, sad to say, in this country that do the very bare minimum and do their work very hard to try to circumvent the ethical and religious directives, and that's very unfortunate. These institutions have unfortunately essentially lost their Catholicity. But on the other hand, there's some very good, faithful Catholic hospitals that truly work hard to do the very best, to bring the very, very best medical care that follows the wonderful, beautiful ethical guidelines that the Catholic Church has to offer us.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Anonymous. Appreciate that call. I think we can get a real quick, well, let's see if we can get a real quick one in here. Andy in Lincoln, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Can you real quick get Dr. Delgado the question so he'll have time to answer it?
Well, yeah, I think I can. Just wanted to say hi, Dr. Delgado and Cy.
Hi.
Good to have you on the line.
The question I have, I guess, I'm hoping that I can describe the condition that my daughter has. She's been prescribed birth control for a medical condition, and I don't remember the name of it. Anyway, acne is one of the symptoms. She's in her 20s. She's also been told that she's not likely to be able to conceive, and her testosterone levels are really high. And
sounds like she has
I don't know,
polycystic ovarian syndrome. Sounds like she has polycystic ovarian syndrome, and that can be treated.
Sounds like what I was told. Something that I couldn't remember.
So she should find a doctor trained in NAPRO technology, and she can go to Fertility Care Centers of America. Go to the website and look under medical consultants, because there is a surgery that's been resurrected called the ovarian wedge resection that is the closest thing to a cure for polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I would recommend that. That would be much safer than being on birth control pills. If she doesn't want to have the surgery at this stage in her life, then there are multiple medications that can be used to treat the polycystic ovarian syndrome and the acne without her being on birth control pills that would be probably just as effective and would be safer. So I would urge you to look into those two things.
Go ahead,
Andy.
Andy.
Me those references again?
Sure. Fertility Care Centers of America. And then you'd look for a medical consultant there, and you can also go to naprotechnology.com.
NAPRO, N-A-P-R-O?
N-A-P-R-O technology.com.
Andy, thanks very much. I hope that turns out to be helpful to you and your daughter. What is NAPRO, Dr. Delgado?
That's a new women's health science, short for Natural Procreative Technology, that was founded by Dr. Thomas Hilgers. It's a way to diagnose and treat underlying causes of conditions affecting the fertility system that is completely in concert with the Catholic Church's teachings and with all religious teachings, in fact.
I see. Okay, so it's a kind of a system for using the latest and greatest technology for women, but in an ethical, moral, acceptable way.
That's right.
Hey, very great to hear it. I will recommend again to the listener, check out the Washington Post website today. Wonderful article on Dr. Delgado and the work he is doing with reversing abortion pill. The website is abortionpillreversal.com. Yes?
That's right.
Okay, abortionpillreversal.com. Dr. George Delgado, thank you so much for another fine hour. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And
Happy Easter.
Hey, happy Easter, and God bless you in your continued efforts to continue to save lives. It means so much. Next hour, we're going to continue with Pro-Life Open Forum. This time, we will be joined by Stephanie Gray, a magnificent pro-life speaker and activist and ethicist. So if you're on the line, go ahead, hang on the line. We'll do our best to get to you. If you haven't called, 888-318-7884 is the number. We'll be right back after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to our second Big Wednesday hour here at Catholic Answers Live. We continue with our pro-life open forum. And if you have questions about life in its various stages and how we are to treat that life, especially how the Catholic Church understands it and in its ethical teachings, its moral teachings, 888-318-7884 is the number. If you are not a pro-life person and you feel in any way excluded or that your view needs to be heard, please call. We as long as we can have a polite conversation, we love to have a conversation with you. 888-318-7884 is the number. Certainly, we live in a time of great controversy surrounding how humans are to be treated from conception to natural death, and at almost every moment in between. Our guest this hour is just a perfect person to help us sort that out. Stephanie Gray is our guest. Stephanie is the co-founder of the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform, where she spent 12 years as executive director. She's the author of Love Unleashes Life, Abortion and the Art of Communicating Truth, as well as A Physician's Guide to Discussing Abortion. If you want to find her stuff online, loveunleasheslife.com, right? I always am never sure. .com, not .org.
.com,
okay,
correct. Loveunleasheslife.com.
Very good. Stephanie Gray, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me back.
And I said that to the listener because I want people to know you're not at all averse to speaking with those who have other views, who come at this from different directions. You're happy to talk with them.
That's correct. In fact, I just recently debated the former president of the ACLU, Nadine Strawson, at the University of Virginia Law School. And just prior to that, I debated a law professor in Boulder, Colorado. And coming up in 2 weeks, I'm debating the first medical director of the International Planned Parenthood Federation at Berkeley. So I welcome, hearing the viewpoint of people that is different from my own in order to have a very healthy discussion.
All right. We'll look forward to that then. 888-318-7884, the number 888-318-7884. I was thinking that today, one of the very significant things about today is that it's the 50th anniversary of the killing of Dr. Martin Luther King, and he's always invoked on both sides of this debate. And people should know that the debate was not in a form that it is now, because it was 5 years. He died 5 years before the Supreme Court decision came down on Roe versus Wade. But he certainly never expressed any support for abortion in his life. And I just wanted to say this because it will be much discussed. He did receive an award from the Margaret Sanger Award from Planned Parenthood. But people should also know that Planned Parenthood at that time was anti-abortion. They were not favoring abortion. As a matter of fact, they said in their literature that abortion was killing, and they always made a very strong point of saying contraception is not abortion and that kind of thing. So I do think that Martin Luther King is a person to invoke on this anniversary, however, because this is the civil rights issue of our day, isn't it? This is the main civil rights issue of our day. Who's a human being and who's not?
Absolutely. Throughout the history of my 15-plus years of full-time pro-life work, I have routinely quoted Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I have analogized how he responded to the injustice of racism, to how we ought to respond to the injustice of abortion. His letter from Birmingham jail is probably one of my most my favorite pieces of writing that he composed, which so powerfully talks about the need to confront a guilty culture when an injustice is happening, no matter what the response is to us, that we have to move forward with boldness, that we have to capture the sacrificial spirit of the early church. And he writes about the early church and how they brought an end to infanticide and gladiatorial contests because they engaged the culture, they confronted the culture. And he said, this is why I'm confronting the culture on racism. And he was criticized by church leaders of the day. That's why he wrote his letter from Birmingham jail. It was in response to critical clergymen women who were like, hey, we agree with your end result, but we don't like your controversial tactics, your approach to achieving your end result. And Dr. King explained why he needed to be controversial, why he needed to engage, he needed to confront. And the same is very much true for the pro-life movement. You have to be peaceful, as Dr. King was, but we have to be bold. We have to be courageous. And we have to remember, as Dr. King said in his letter from Birmingham jail, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And he recognized that to consider the Black person inferior to the whites was not only an attack on Black people, but it would be an attack on others. And we're now seeing, correspondingly, an attack on the preborn child is not just an attack on them. It's leading to attacks on other more vulnerable persons, such as the disabled, the elderly, who are now under attack with assisted suicide and euthanasia. So Dr. King's words, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, are as true today as they were when he composed that letter.
Amen, sister. Yeah, and one of the great things about Letter from a Birmingham Jail is that I think in most schools, at some point in history class, students have to read it. And it's just one of those things where you almost wish it was considered one of the founding documents, like the Constitution or whatnot. It's that good. And
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. And
yes.
I do want to point out, too, that in 1943 and in 1958, and probably more successfully in 1958, the U.S. Catholic bishops made very grave statements against racism, against racial discrimination in the United States. And one of the things that you kind of notice between those statements is that things were going very well in 1943 for the improvement of the lives of Black people in America. In 1958, they were not. Things had gone back the other way. I say that only to give pro-life people hope. This is not a thing that is a straight line. It goes up and down. There's reactions, and a good part of the reason that Martin Luther King had to do what he did, and those around him had to do, is because in the 1950s there was such a backlash against Black liberation. That in the 1960s they had to fight so hard to reverse that. Well, we maybe feel that backlash ourselves sometimes. I don't want to suggest that I or anybody like me is facing the dogs and the water cannons or anything like that. But I just want to take hope from what a person like Martin Luther King accomplished.
Well, that, and also I think what's important to remember is we're not facing the dogs and the water cannons, the fire hoses, the billy clubs and so forth, but the babies are. And I think an important point for us to remember when it comes to analogizing the pro-life movement to the civil rights movement is the victims in the civil rights movement were able to protest. They were able to march in the streets. They were able to hold signs that said, "I am a man." We are not the victims like they were. Aborted children are, or preborn children are, who are being deprived of personhood status and are at risk of abortion. But unlike the civil rights activists, the preborn child cannot march in the street. The child cannot hold a sign that says, "I am a human," the way the Black man held a sign that said, "I am a man." So the preborn child is under attack very much the way civil rights activists were, with the water cannons, with the angry police officers chasing after them with baseball bats.
Yeah.
So we very much are standing in their place, representing them.
Thank you for making that point, because it's such a dignified thing that the sanitation workers in Memphis did, holding up those signs that said, "I am a man." And and we don't respect the lives of others if we don't respect the dignity of others. And those men were insisting that their dignity be respected, and that's exactly what we have to do in the place of the unborn. 888-318-7884 is our number. It's a pro-life open forum this hour. If you have any questions about life at its various stages and the ethical treatment of that life, Stephanie Gray, activist and author, is here to answer those questions. 888-318-7884. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with your calls after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Bringing you the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
Talking about abortion can be scary, but so is anything with which you're unfamiliar. People need to learn how to talk about abortion in ways that inspire confidence in the truth of the pro-life position. We must talk about abortion because we are afraid. Persuasive Pro-Life: How to Talk About Our Culture's Toughest Issue is the new book by apologist Trent Horn that teaches you to face those fears, to engage in sustained and meaningful dialogue with the goal of persuading others. Field tested on college campuses, Persuasive Pro-Life will help you to change people's hearts and minds and begin to build up a pro-life culture in today's world, one person, one conversation at a time. Order your copy of Persuasive Pro-Life, How to Talk About Our Culture's Toughest Issue, today by calling 1-888-291-8000, going to Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore in your area. Also available as an ebook.
Go forth and preach the good news. It's not just a suggestion. If you want to take more seriously the command of Jesus to share the gospel with those around you, consider joining St. Paul Street Evangelization. It's a grassroots organization that brings the Catholic faith to the streets in a non-confrontational way. Visit our website, www.streetevangelization.com, to learn more. And don't forget to like us on Facebook. It's time to do our part.
Did you know that Catholic Answers Live is on TV? What began as a monthly series on EWTN in April of 2017 is now going to be coming to you on a weekly basis. You can catch Catholic Answers Live TV Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on EWTN, with an encore at 2:30 a.m. on Sundays. We'll also be available soon on Apple TV, Roku, and the Augustine Institute's multimedia platform, Form. Make a point of making Catholic Answers Live TV part of your weekly viewing, and we'll see you on the airwaves.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. It's a pro-life open forum this hour. 888-318-7884 is the number. Stephanie Gray is our guest, and I didn't really give you a chance to respond when we went to the break. I was just talking about it really is striking what that's just that simple sign, "I am a man," said when the Memphis sanitation workers held it, because it is just so obviously a true thing. That it forced people to recognize the indignity of how those men were being treated because they behaved with such dignity and pointed to their own dignity. I didn't let you follow up on that at all.
Well, yeah, what strikes me is whenever we talk about the dignity of the person is that so often as our culture moves towards embracing assisted suicide and euthanasia, we're seeing people talk about, at the end of my life, I will lose my dignity. Or if I'm not allowed to die the way I want, it will be an undignified death. And what always strikes me is that we inherently have dignity. And dignity cannot be taken from us. So if when someone is sick or dying, they're soiling themselves and they need to be changed, or they're drooling and they need their mouths wiped, that's not a sign that they have lost their dignity. In fact, it is us changing them or wiping their mouths that conveys we recognize their dignity. And so we take away the things which are not respecting or showing the dignity that they actually have. I often think of if you have a priceless painting and it's been hidden away and it's covered in dust, the dust on the painting does not mean the painting has lost its dignity.
Yes.
It just means we're not treating the painting with its, maybe dignity is the wrong word, but with its value and the significance that the painting has. So we don't get rid of the painting, we get rid of the dust. So if someone is feeling like they're not being treated with dignity, the best thing we can do is not say you've lost your dignity, but to say, let me treat you with the dignity you have and is inherent to your being. That's important.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that addendum. 888-318-7884, our number. Let's go to Jane in Naples, Florida, listening to EWTN on Sirius Satellite Radio. Jane, your question for Stephanie Gray.
My question might be a little off, but I was wondering if I could get some references for how Planned Parenthood is involved with the Girl Scouts. My granddaughter is in the Girl Scouts, and I refused to buy the cookies this year. And my daughter-in-law gave me a website, snoops.com, and she said it will explain everything, and Planned Parenthood is not involved with the Girl Scouts of America.
Well, a couple things come to mind. Whenever we have questions, is this organization or that organization funding or in some way supporting what otherwise would be a good cause? I say go to the organization directly. Give them a phone call. Don't tell them your position. Just say, I'm curious as to what the Girl Scouts of America support or who they're supported by and whether there's any endorsement of this other organization. And so first check with them to see what they say. And sometimes because people can be so comfortable with who they support, they might very freely speak of their support. Then the other source that I would recommend besides the original source itself is to go to Live Action, an organization run by Lila Rhodes. They've done a lot of exposés on Planned Parenthood, and they would be able to provide information to you about what organizations are supported by Planned Parenthood or support Planned Parenthood.
Oh, good. They're good ideas. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Jane.
You're welcome.
I've heard a lot of talk both ways on that, too, so I appreciate that direction. But I wonder how well, let me put it this way, because you're an ethicist, how intertwined does an organization have to be with something like Planned Parenthood to make it completely objectionable to us? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I know. That's always the question, not specifically in this case, but in any case if someone is receiving support. So the first thing I would say, well, is the Girl Scouts of America doing anything to directly involve themselves with support of Planned Parenthood? Are they endorsing abortion? Are they endorsing contraception by volunteer time, by encouragement of people to get involved in that organization, by financial support? If you have any of those things, then I think you should be very concerned.
I gotcha. Okay. Again, 888-318-7884 is our number, 888-318-7884. Stephanie Gray is our guest, and we go now to Jeff in Portland, Oregon, listening on Modern Day Radio. Jeff, you are on with Stephanie Gray. Your question, please.
Well, the argument you hear all the time is it's not a viable living tissue, right? That if it's taken away from the womb, it will die. Did they not just at that moment confess, realize, and tell you that it's actually living?
You're very sharp. That's a great point. If I was debating someone who raised that, I would respond that same way. If we're talking about any type of intervention and bringing about death, that's a concession, as you've rightly pointed out, that prior to death there was life. And I think another point we can make, and that certainly is a powerful one, but another point we can make is to ask, what do you mean by viability? If we're talking about the child's ability to survive aside from the mother, then yes, very early in pregnancy, and for a good part of pregnancy, the preborn child cannot survive without the mother. But what about a born child? Can a born child survive without the involvement of someone else? You know, if a newborn baby is taken to a room and placed in the room by herself, and no one enters the room for 7 days, when someone then comes in a week later, they're going to find a corpse, not a living child, because even newborn children cannot survive without the assistance of someone in some capacity. They're more independent than a fetus, but they're still dependent in a way that I am not dependent. I am more independent than the born child. So we all have varying degrees of an ability to survive on our own. The question we have to ask someone is, what are human rights grounded in? Are human rights grounded in how viable we are, or are they grounded in what we are as human beings? And that's really the key, because if they were viability rights, they'd be called that. But by virtue of being called human rights, then all that matters is that you're human, not how independent you are, not your ability to survive on your own. Great point.
Jeff, how's that for you?
It's excellent. The other thing is it does come right to the issue of when does life begin? Because as soon as you admitted it was something that could die, you just admitted that life had begun. So
yes,
you got them on a double point there.
Absolutely, and you know, Jeff, when people, you know, the question of when life begins, I always like to point out that if we talk about where we would ban abortion, whether it's 3 months or 6 months or 9 months at birth, even that is a concession. We acknowledge life begins at fertilization. Because to talk about 3 months is to admit that something significant happened 3 months ago, that we started counting the passage of time. Or something significant happened 6 months ago or 9 months ago, that we started watching the passing of time on a clock. And so what happened 6 months ago, what happened 3 months ago, that was the moment of fertilization. That's when life begins. And that's what embryology textbooks tell us time and again, that human development begins at fertilization.
Jeff, thanks so much. Appreciate the call. 888-318-7884, our number. Stephanie from Facebook, John on Facebook, typed in the following question. To what degree has the American Catholic Church's involvement in the anti-life pedophilia scandals damaged and undermined its witness for life? Or I guess, has that situation presented any unexpected opportunities?
I mean, I have not thought much about paralleling how some in the church have responded to sex scandals and the injustice and scandal of abortion. What I would say is that cover-up is a problem. Yeah. And there were people in the church who covered up wrongdoing rather than bringing what's in darkness into the light so it could be dealt with, so that justice could be done, so that victims could be helped, and so forth. And so the tendency to cover up stuff when we're guilty or someone we know is guilty and we're afraid of what uncovering it could do to us is a tendency that sometimes happens within the battle of abortion today. There's a tendency to cover up our involvement, our complicity, the injustice of abortion, the brutality of it. We want to kind of sweep it under the rug. And that's a tendency that between those two injustices, I would say we have to resist. No more cover-up. We need to bring what's in darkness into the light. We need to be a voice for the victims, and we need to bring justice so that those who have victimized have consequences for their preying on the vulnerable, whether they have preyed on born children or whether they have preyed on preborn children.
And there is also the other thing, however, I'll throw this out at you and see what you think. I mean, sometimes this idea, because it's so simple scientifically, I mean, really for well over 100 years, embryologists have known when a mammal's life begins and how the mammal's life begins within the mother. There's just no, and human beings are mammals, and so we're not different. Our lives begin at that moment of that scientists call fertilization, that we call conception. But if you say that, it's very easy to just avoid that conversation and say, "Oh, why don't you just look at yourselves and your pedophilia problem?" And then it allows a kind of escape from having to face the reality of what's going on in abortion.
And that's a good point, that when we acknowledge other injustices have gone on or still are going on, we need to be mindful that some people might bring these other issues up to get us away from the topic at hand. So that, for example, if abortion is being discussed, they'll bring up other scandals or other issues so that they don't have to defend the indefensible. And so I think there is that importance that we have wisdom to know, is someone legitimately bringing this other concern up, or are they trying to bring it up to distract us from talking about abortion because they don't want to defend the killing of children, but by holding a pro-choice position, that's essentially what they're doing. So I think we certainly need to be aware of why is someone bringing this up and what are their ultimate motives.
Again, 888-318-7884, our number. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest this hour is Stephanie Gray. Stephanie is the co-founder of the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform. Oh, I'm saying that, but how are things going in Canada? It doesn't seem like it's going very well up there on pro-life issues. Am I mistaken from my limited understanding?
Well, there certainly are many challenges going on in Canada right now. We have a very pro-abortion prime minister who has now created with his government this test that any organization in Canada that would get some government funding in order to hire students and essentially create jobs over the summer for young people now have to sign a document indicating that they are in favor of abortion and so on and so forth. And so there have been various churches and ministries that are like crying out, saying this is ridiculous, that if we want to hire someone to help us feed the homeless, we shouldn't have to make a test that we hold a position on abortion that aligns with the government when we don't hold that position. But we also shouldn't be denied government funding that any other organization would get just because we hold, the view that we do on abortion. So, yeah, there's a lot going on in Canada that involves censorship, injustice. I mean, there's the primary injustice of killing preborn children, of killing the sick and elderly, which is now happening with euthanasia here. Yeah. But then there are so many other elements that are being thrown in with how pro-life speech and pro-lifers are being treated.
I think California might be a Canadian province. I'm not sure, but it's all the same stuff is going on here.
I know.
Yeah, you've probably heard about the California law that says if you run a pro-life facility, you have to give out information on where someone can get an abortion, which is so clearly
challenged in the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah. I don't believe it's been decided yet. However, though, it's
right. I think we're waiting on the decision. Yes.
But one would hope it'd just be a 9-0 decision that would say stop that, because we have a First Amendment here. You can't tell people they have to say, now point to the abortion clinic. No, I don't have to. Well, I would hope, but maybe abortion has a very poisoning effect.
Well, and this is how desperate the abortion rights movement is getting, whether in your country or mine or other parts of the world, is they talk about choice, but they really want to force abortion and support of abortion and promotion of abortion on people and take our choice away from us to say, no, I don't support it. I don't agree with that.
Yep. Stephanie Gray is our guest. Lots of calls. I've been hogging Stephanie. I'll let you talk to her when we come back right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers is doing it again. We're holding our 5th annual Apologetics Conference this September in beautiful San Diego, California, and we'd like to see you there.
We've had a wonderful time going home all enthused.
Every time we come here, it's just an incredible experience.
Normally you'd have to root through a dozen different books to get half the stuff I've learned here.
These guys are so amazing. I always get so much, learn so much. I've already signed up for next year.
Join us this September 27th to the 30th for a lively and inspiring conference with an all-star lineup of speakers guaranteed to jumpstart your faith. All of your favorite Catholic Answers apologists and special keynote speaker Raymond Leo Cardinal Burke.
I enjoy the atmosphere and the friendliness of the people, and I'm having a great time.
I love it. I'm so glad I came here.
I've just learned so much. I've been a Catholic all my life. It's just been so wonderful.
I love it. I want to come back every year.
God helps those who help themselves. Preach the gospel always. When necessary, use words. We all hear sayings like these, and we assume they come from the Bible, the saints, or famous Christian writers. Nobody can seem to place their origin, but by sheer repetition, they've acquired a halo of truth. In my new book, What the Saints Never Said, I look at over 40 of these well-known sayings and track them back to their original sources. You'll be surprised at what I found. Some are close to what was really said. Many were misattributed or twisted beyond their original meaning, and more than a few of these sayings were simply made up. I hope by setting the record straight, I can make you aware of the theological errors that can lead us away from the faith and offer you authentic quotes from Scripture, saints, and scholars that will draw you closer to our faith. Get your copy of What the Saints Never Said by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or by asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
It's the start of a new day for Morning Catholic Radio.
The nun is actually a religious woman who goes into the cloister and stays in the cloister. It's like a female version of a monk is what a nun is. And
that's a good explanation.
So the nuns of in Birmingham are praying for you, Brian. That's a powerhouse of prayer.
Totally blessed. I know some are praying for you too.
That's right.
Morning Glory, Catholic from the start. Weekday mornings 7 Eastern on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest is Stephanie Gray. She's the author of a book, Love Unleashes Life, Abortion and the Art of Communicating Truth, and her website, loveunleasheslife.com, is where you can find out all about her. This Pro-Life Open Forum means anybody that's got a question about life issues can call. Whatever, I guess, quote-unquote, side you happen to be on, you are more than welcome. And the number, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. We go now to Dana in Cypress, California. Dana, you are on with Stephanie Gray. Your question, please.
Yeah, I'll try and be concise here, but today is the 50th anniversary of the murder of Martin Luther King, And if you read his writings, he was very, very opposed to abortion in all its formats. But if you were to look at the voting record of African Americans here in the United States, you would never come to that conclusion because they vote so overwhelmingly pro-choice. And who you vote for in the United States is incredibly important on this particular issue. And my feeling is that the pro-life movement in America has been hijacked by what I call neoconservatives who have become so conservative, and I want to be, not exaggerating, but hateful towards anybody with black or brown skin or a foreign accent, that it's just become very, very difficult to vote for them anymore, even though they have a pro-life standpoint because of all the other stuff that they stand for. And I think that that's a real problem in the United States, that this movement here has no diversity into it. It's basically made up of white, very religious people who are interested in building walls all around the United States of America and
you're referring to the pro-life
themselves
movement. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you're when you say that you're talking about the pro-life movement, or are you talking about a political party?
The pro-life movement itself. If you go to the March for Life that's held all throughout this country, you really kind of see this very strong lack of diversity that exists, and it exists not because people are opposed to protecting unborn children. That's not what this is about. It's what they're opposed to all the other stuff that our pro-life politicians stand for, and they've become, in my opinion, a very ugly form of conservatism that, it's become very difficult to support or vote for them, even though they might be, have a pro-life legislative agenda.
Okay, Stephanie?
Yeah, certainly within any movement, you're going to have some people who represent it well and some people who represent it poorly. I would say in my experience in the pro-life movement, and not only my own country of Canada, but spending a lot of time in the movement in the United States, I do see a lot of diversity. There are African Americans who are involved in the pro-life movement. There's a whole campaign, blackgenocide.org, that raises awareness about abortions being targeted towards the Black community. There are a lot of Hispanics who are involved in the pro-life movement, who work in pregnancy care centers that are specifically trying to help Hispanic women who are faced with unplanned pregnancies. I certainly know in Canada, and I think you could say certainly in other parts of the United States, the Filipinos are very involved in the pro-life movement as well. So I would say there is diversity. Now, having said that, are there some people in the movement who want to protect preborn life but hold other views on other political issues that don't seem to be consistent? Yes, there are. And we're going to find that, just as you pointed out, there will be some African Americans who will support a politician who is pro-abortion, but they may be like that politician's policies on other matters. We see this all the time where people are making choices by prioritizing one issue over another. And I would say that this is always the challenge whenever it comes to who to cast our vote for, is what issues are higher in the priority and what are lower. And I would say that when it comes to all of the rights, the most foundational of all rights, the foundational right is the right to life. If I have no life, then what's the point of the right to freedom, because I have no life with which to exercise my freedom? So I would say that I believe the right to life is primary, it's paramount. We need to prioritize that, but we need to be building into leaders so that they are people of virtue across the board, so that they represent the movement that's pro-life well, rather than turning people off by a lack of character.
Dana, I want to go back to you, but accepting Stephanie's answer, but also I want to ask you, is there any possibility that this may be kind of a stereotype of pro-lifers? Because you mentioned Dr. Martin Luther King, but the first woman doctor to graduate from Harvard Medical School was Mildred Fay Jefferson, and she was also the director of the National Right to Life Committee throughout the 1970s. And so I'm not, and it may be that you'd say, well, she's not typical of the movement. I don't know, but I wonder if you have any concern that you might be stereotyping an entire movement.
I would be concerned about that, but clearly Martin Luther King was pro-life. and this woman that you mentioned, I've not heard of her, but a medical doctor would be somebody I would think would be highly likely to be pro-life because they understand the whole process of gestation better than your average citizen. I think that Stephanie's comments about a lot of African Americans, a lot of Filipino Americans, a lot of Hispanic Americans being involved in pro-life is absolutely true, but there's tens of millions of them that are voting for pro-choice candidates because they don't like to see walls built, they don't like, police officers to shoot unarmed, law-abiding African Americans to death without any repercussions, and all these other things that pro-life political candidates seem to be strongly in favor of. And I hate to be cliche, but all you have to do is look at the conduct of our current president, who is the champion of pro-life in the United States, and all of these things about character are really pretty much destroyed at that point just because of their champion's conduct. I mean, right now, today, he is denying his sexual liaison with a pornographic movie star.
I'm not following the argument, though, Dana. It seems very impressionistic, this thinking, and I welcome you to your comments, but let's be honest. Many politicians who are pro-life because they know that their constituents are pro-life. That's not. I mean, many politicians are pro-choice because they know their constituents are pro-choice. What makes the pro-life movement is millions and millions and millions of people who know what abortion is, who understand what abortion is, and vote accordingly. So to me, that it's not an argument to say, well, the guy who claims the mantle of being the pro-life president is, an unappealing figure. Therefore, the whole movement is besmirched. I'll go to you, Stephanie. Go ahead.
Well, and I think, again, there's problems when it comes to the vast majority of politicians. I often ask people, who inspires you? And people will reference individuals like Martin Luther King Jr. They will talk about people that have lived virtuous, sacrificial lives, or they might pick politicians from the past, like William Wilberforce. But I don't hear people talk about politicians today in answering the question who inspires them. They don't say, this politician or that politician is really someone who inspires me. So we do have a serious problem in our culture today. It's a problem in not only politics, but a problem in entertainment, which is a rejection of virtue and an embracing of vice. So you're right to be concerned, but I would say this is a problem across the board. Whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, there are some good examples, but there's a whole lot of bad examples of people in positions of leadership who aren't living virtuous lives. So this is a problem, but because we can't completely ignore the foundational issues that need to be addressed, we're left with a messy situation where we have some people that aren't the best, most virtuous individuals, but when it comes to some issues that are paramount and primary, they might vote in the right way. And this is the dilemma that we're in.
Dana, thanks very, very much for the call. I do appreciate it. And I have to say, at a fundamental root level, I totally agree with Dana. I don't know if you do. I think that a more diverse pro-life movement is necessary. As a matter of fact, I think it should be so diverse that everybody is part of it, every single human being on Earth. That would be the appropriate diversity, I think.
Well, I agree, and that's why I really always frame the topic as this is a human rights issue. It's not a women's issue. It's not a black person issue. It's not a white person issue. It's a human rights issue. If we're humans, and if we believe in human rights, then all we need to do is say, if preborn children are human, then they have the same human rights as you or me. And what your skin color is, your age, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, all of that is irrelevant. The question is, are you human?
We're going to take a quick break. Dana, thanks again for the call. More of your calls for Stephanie Gray during this pro-life open forum when we come back on Catholic Answers Live.
This is Bishop Robert Baer, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
God helps those who help themselves. Preach the gospel always. When necessary, use words. We all hear sayings like these, and we assume they come from the Bible, the saints, or famous Christian writers. Nobody can seem to place their origin, but by sheer repetition, they've acquired a halo of truth. In my new book, What the Saints Never Said, I look at over 40 of these well-known sayings and track them back to their original sources. You'll be surprised at what I found. Some are close to what was really said. Many were misattributed or twisted beyond their original meaning, and more than a few of these sayings were simply made up. I hope by setting the record straight, I can make you aware of the theological errors that can lead us away from the faith and offer you authentic quotes from Scripture, saints, and scholars that will draw you closer to our faith. Get your copy of What the Saints Never Said by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or by asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Would you like to become a Catholic Answers Live parish partner? We need you to help us spread the word at your local parish. We'll give you bumper stickers, window clings, flyers, everything you need to let your parish know about the best Catholic radio show on the air. We want you to partner with us. Email us at calpartners@catholic.com today and become a Catholic Answers parish partner.
Join us this September for a conference that is sure to ignite and inform your faith.
Every time we come here, it's just an incredible experience.
I love it. I love it. I'm so glad I came here.
And I'm having the time of my life.
Early bird pricing ends July 2nd. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 1-888-291-8000 today to register.
These guys are so amazing. I always get so much, learn so much. I've already signed up for next year.
Do you enjoy tedious lectures full of facts you'll never use? We didn't think so. That's why we're launching the Council of Trent, Trent Horn's engaging new podcast. Every week, you'll get lively lessons in Catholic teaching, as well as a new conversation roadmap that will help you share your Catholic faith with anyone, anytime, anywhere. Visit TrentHornPodcast.com now to find out how you can subscribe to this exciting new podcast.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back. Happy Easter. Easter week continues, and we are joined by Stephanie Gray, who loveunleasheslife.com is her website. Love Unleashes Life is the name of one of her books, also A Physician's Guide to Discussing Abortion. And I've been talking too much, so we got to get to more calls, and I'm just got to find the call. Okay, Father Prame in Big Lake, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Is that correct, Father Prame?
Yes, Prem, Piorium.
Okay, Father, you are on with Stephanie. Your question.
That's wonderful. Well, I think the topic is very good, and you guys are really doing a good job, bringing out a lot of different points. My question to Stephanie is this. We have been doing a lot of work on the front of abortion and rallies and other things, but how much of your work, or even around the country, which I have not seen, have you at all considered trying to do some moral education, which is lacking actually in our society today, which is the root cause of abortion, because the family value system has collapsed. So there is a complete revival of culture has to happen. And so to that end, have you all ever considered doing anything apart from doing the work, for the stop of abortion?
Great question, Father, and I think a very important observation that the problem is bigger than abortion, for sure. Abortion is a very serious problem. It's very grave. It's the direct attack on innocent life. But there's this understanding that if we had solid families where, first of all, people weren't sexually promiscuous, but if they were, they had the support of their family and therefore would carry a pregnancy to term or choose adoption potentially within the family rather than abortion. If those things were set up, then abortion is less likely to happen. So I would say, yes, we need to do education in the area of sexuality, in the area of virtue in general, in building better families. Catholic author Matthew Kelly has a book by that title, Building Better Families. There's a whole organization in Denver called Families of Character, which is all about restoring virtue and helping individual family members work as a team in growing in virtue. So there is a need to do this. I would say that one thing I have recognized over the years is that he who fights everywhere fights nowhere. And no one person can handle everything adequately. That's why in the medical field we have specialists. The surgeon If you go to, a heart surgeon and ask him about a pain in your foot, he's going to say, whoa, find a specialist, find a podiatrist, find someone who works with feet. I couldn't tell you. So I would say for myself, I know what my specific calling is and my giftings and how I can best advance the cause of preborn children with that gifting, and that I will devote my energies there. But I recognize that I'm a link in a chain, a bond of connection between persons. I believe it was Cardinal Newman who said that in one of his prayers. And so I know that there are other people with other giftings and passions that need to focus on the area of building better families, and that will work in a very complementary way to, for example, what I do. So the church is an example where the body of Christ takes on all these issues because they fall under the teachings of Christ. And so we have to fight abortion, we have to fight sexual promiscuity, we have to fight contraception, we have to build better families, we have to restore virtue in general. And so the church, in its vastness, can take on these issues with so many people and so many organizations that can become specialists in those areas.
Okay, Father?
Wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. Again, in our diocese, I don't really see much happening on that front. So hopefully in the coming months and years, we try to do something, because I never hear people trying to do anything in that line, because everything that happens is just with regard to abortion or to the end to abortion. But this is one area I think I'm passionate about doing something. And like you said, let all of us join together, even as simple links in the chain. Hopefully we could somehow better our country, better the world at large. And hopefully, again, a human person once again recognizes one's dignity.
Amen.
Perhaps we ourselves have masked, if not somebody else, we may have masked our own dignity, so we need to somehow dust off ourselves.
Well put. I know where you got that dust off metaphor too, Father.
Yes,
Thank you very much,
Father,
Father, for that call.
Well, and I want to emphasize again, Father, Families of Character, a program from Denver, and Building Better Families, a book by Matthew Kelly. I think both of those things will help you in your priestly ministry. And I think I can even mention it from my own archdiocese in Vancouver. Our Archbishop has mandated that in all of our Catholic schools, the parents and students in 4th to 7th grade have to come to a program called Sexuality in Your Child, where there are a team of people who talk to the parents about how they can talk to their children about sexual morality, about puberty, about theology of the body, and about ethical use of social media. And so the idea is that parents are the primary educators of their children, but the Archdiocese wants to do a better job of educating the parents so they can better educate their children. And I know in the United States, there's a wonderful bishop in Phoenix, Bishop Olmsted, and he has a very expansive program in which he really works to build up families and the message of the pro-life community at its broadest level through that diocese. And they might have some good ideas to help you in your area.
Thanks again, Father. Thank you very much for that call. 888-31-TRUTH is our number. We go now to Terry in Canton, Michigan, listening on Ave Maria Radio. Terry, your question for Stephanie Gray.
Actually, a statement, Hi, Stephanie. Stephanie, I didn't know about you. If you knew about this event next week, so that would be Wednesday, April 11th in the United States, a national event. This is a peaceful pro-life walkout of classrooms by students taking their own initiative. Again, I want to stress peaceful. Now, my computer's running a virus check, so I can't give you a website, but it's the National Pro-Life Walkout Day on April 11th in the United States, and I want to stress that this is peaceful.
Well, thanks for mentioning that. I'm actually not aware of that program. And one thing that strikes me is, as it relates to what we talked about at the beginning of the program, the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and how the civil rights movement believed in peacefully but boldly confronting the culture and engaging people with direct action, with marches, with sit-ins and protests. And so this sounds like it's along the same lines conceptually. And I would emphasize an important point for anyone who decides to participate in that is to remember those who walk out of the classrooms are not the victims. The civil rights activists were the victims. But when you walk out of the classroom on behalf of preborn children, you're not the victim, the baby is. So what's very important is that anyone who participates in that makes that victim known. Talk about who the baby is. Have an image of the preborn child. Have prenatal development facts ready and available about the baby's heart beating at 3 weeks and brainwaves detected at 6 weeks. Talk about the facts of what abortion does to that preborn child so that you represent the child in a way because the child is incapable of representing herself.
Terry, thanks very much for informing us of that. Let's go to Leslie in Celeste, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Leslie, your question for Stephanie Gray.
Hello, and thank you. I just wanted to know, Stephanie, if you have been reading about, and if so, do you have any thought on this new frontier of creating embryos using the cells just from one human being, say the arm cells? I read all about this in the latest issue of Wired magazine, and they've done this with mice. And when I say they, I can't be very specific about what scientists. I do not believe it was in the United States, but it's definitely something being discussed, and certainly in small pockets, this research is going on, and I just wondered what your thoughts were about it.
Sure. Well, there certainly are a lot of things happening within the scientific community that are morally problematic. And if you look at something like cloning, let's contrast that with normal reproduction. The sperm and the egg only have half the genetic material needed to make a human, and it's their coming together that forms the 46 chromosomes, typically unless there's a genetic anomaly. But in cloning, what happens is you can take a skin cell which already has 46 chromosomes in it. And what scientists are doing is they're taking an egg cell which has 23 chromosomes in it, and they're taking the nucleus out so there's no genetic material in the egg. And then they're putting the 46 chromosomes from the skin cell, for example, in that enucleated egg, and they're able to, with electricity and other things, they're able to replicate fertilization and make that cell then begin to divide, so that it would be a genetic clone of the individual that the cell originally came from with the DNA in it. And so I would say that is morally problematic because it's creating human life outside the context of sexual intimacy. And I think a phrase that can be helpful is to remember that human beings are supposed to be begotten, not made. We're supposed to be begotten, not made. We are supposed to be the fruit of a loving act between two people who are committed for life in the vocation of marriage. And that when you involve third parties, scientists in labs, taking parts of this human and that human, and putting them together, now we're turning the beginning of human life into a manufacturing process like building a car. But humans are not objects to be used and disposed of. We are subjects that are unrepeatable and irreplaceable that should be begotten out of an act of love. And so when you take the creation of human life outside of a union of love, then you start to treat humans like objects rather than subjects. So I would say that this would be problematic, as you've outlined.
Leslie?
Oh, awesome. I was smiling. I was looking for types of answers to this article, and that's awesome. Yes, thank you.
You might want to visit, I'll just throw this out there, loveunleasheslife.com is Stephanie's website, and so you might want to take a look there. Leslie, again, thanks for the call. The innovations seem to come. Oh, that reminds me of something Martin Luther King said, that we need to have a moral advancement that can keep up with our technological advancement. I think he said that several different times. But it's hard to do it. Moral advancement is just by its nature so much more plodding, slow to develop morally.
Well, right, and that's where, again, all of our actions we have to step back and say, not what can I do, but what ought I do. Not what is technically possible, but what is morally possible. What is the right thing to do? And so that's why, getting back to our previous conversation about, politicians and a general lack of virtue and the breakdown of the family, that if we want society to advance, if we want humans to flourish, then everything that we do has to be guided by a moral worldview that's based on a Judeo-Christian perspective that says humans have dignity, God exists, we're made in his image, and he knows better than we do as to how we ought to live. And so we seek out God's teachings to conform our lives to how our Creator lovingly made us to live.
Stephanie Gray, I see why you do what you do. Thank you so much for just a very enlightening hour. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we were able to, at least for a moment, remember Dr. Martin Luther King on this 50th anniversary of his murder, and associate that with the efforts to make sure that life in all its stages is given the respect and dignity it deserves. Thanks so much, Stephanie. Let's do it again.
Sounds good.
I appreciate it. Tomorrow, 2 hours of open forum on Catholic Answers Live. Any question you've got about the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church is welcome. Easter week continues. Jesus Christ is the light of the nations, and we'll see you next time on Catholic Answers Live.